So before we get into how the Los Angeles Clippers are one of the most shocking teams in the NBA, we kind of have to start with a backstory. After a very disappointing playoff series against the Dallas Mavericks where they ended up losing in 6 games, the Los Angeles Clippers had a lot of decisions to make this offseason. They had Paul George, who they needed to re-sign, James Harden, who they needed to re-sign, and you also just extended Kawhi Leonard midway through the season after him only playing 2 games against this Dallas Mavericks team and not playing well in either one of them. So we all end up knowing what happened in this situation. The Los Angeles Clippers declined a sign and trade to send Paul George over to the Golden State Warriors for Jonathan Kuminga and some other assets. They ended up re-signing James Harden to a 2-year deal, and they ended up running the situation back with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, letting go of Russell Westbrook and also letting go of Paul George, but bringing in key guys like Chris Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr. Not only that, but after Kawhi Leonard only decided to play 2 games or was only able to play 2 games in that series against Dallas, he decided to suit up for Team USA, which would have been very questionable if he would have played because he was limping through that series against Dallas, like I said, only able to play 2 games. But then he was asked to leave Team USA due to him not being 100% healthy. And throughout the entire offseason, I was saying the Clippers are one of the biggest losers of the offseason. They lose Paul George for basically nothing. They're asking aging James Harden and a injury-prone Kawhi Leonard to really carry this team through a playoff series or just to be a playoff team, and I just did not think that was the best options. And especially with the lack of draft capital that they have, it would have been hard to really move pieces around to get better assets. And I'm going to be honest, I was really wrong. I was really wrong about the Clippers, and I think a lot of people were, because coming into the season, the Clippers were a team that you looked at as a team that would have been right outside of the play-in or maybe at the bottom of the Western Conference playoff rankings just because of the lack of injury prone, or just not the lack of injury prone, but the lack of healthy talent that they had consistently on this Clippers team. It felt like every year of this Clippers tenure, somebody was out, and that really prevented their chances of going to the NBA Finals. And even though I think James Harden is one of the best floor raisers offensively the league has ever seen, I just really question his lack of rim pressure and just the scoring volume that he provided over the past few seasons to make me think that he could be a number one that could carry this team to a solid playoff spot until Kawhi Leonard come back, or just keep this team afloat. And I'll be the first one to admit, I was wrong about this Clippers team. I just really thought that it was probably the last run for this Clippers team. Once again, I did not think that James Harden or Kawhi Leonard would have been traded because they had just opened up a new arena, which looks really good, and the Clippers fans have been really loyal to their team, and they have made that atmosphere almost amazing to the point where I would love to see this team and this environment in a playoff setting for 7 games. That would be phenomenal. But I think no one could have predicted Norman Powell playing the way or playing at the level that he has played so far this season. Norman Powell this season is averaging about 24 points per game on about 64% true shooting. He's been shooting 45% from the 3 on 8 3-point attempts. He's been 49% on catch and shoot threes, 41% on pull-up threes. He's a plus 10 points per 100 possessions for the Los Angeles Clippers, and he's a plus 5.3 effective field goal percentage. And if you ask me, adding an extra 20 point per game type of score is something that this Clippers team really needed, because once again, something really concerned me with James Harden just being the primary ball handler for this Clippers team, especially with the amount of threes that he leans on to his game-to-game basis as now compared to what he used to do in Houston, in Brooklyn, in Philly. So that was very concerning. But it's not only that, it's the way they use him, just being off screens, him getting pinned downs to get to the 3-point line, or just him cutting to the basket and receiving screens to make his driving lanes a lot easier when he does have the ball or when he does not have the ball. This season, Norman Powell is generating about 1.15 points per possession off screens, which would be 58% effective field goal percentage, which would be the 4th highest with anyone with at least 2 possessions off screen this season. So if you just add that level of efficiency and that level of off-ball play and the consistent threat of Norman Powell being a shooter, that's something that can pair with James Harden immensely well. And you kind of forget how little James Harden needs to keep a team afloat in a playoff setting or even in a regular season setting when the best player may not be there. You just add a guy like Norman Powell who's been extremely efficient, and now this team is in the hunt to be a playoff team. And let's not just talk about it there. Ivica Zubac has been phenomenal this season as an offensive player, whether it's just dumping the ball off to him in the post, whether it's just making decisions in the short roll, because we all know a James Harden-led offense is going to be an offense that runs a lot of pick and rolls, which is just fine. Derrick Jones Jr. has been a guy that can sit in the dunker spot and cut to the basket and finish around the rim at a high level, and Chris Dunn has been one of the better perimeter defenders in the entire league. And speaking of James Harden, he still is putting numbers up. He's averaging about 21 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, and about 8 assists a night on 40, 35, 85 shooting splits and about a 57% true shooting. And he's averaging about 16 field goals attempts a game. For context, James Harden has not averaged about 16 to 17 field goal attempts since his last stint in Brooklyn. So as we can see, the shot attempts have kind of jumped up over the past few seasons. Even though it's not that big of a gap, you still would not want Harden to be having this type of responsibility as a scorer. So now we bring in Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, who is one of the best scorers over the past 10 to 15 seasons in the NBA, one of the best defenders we've seen since 2000. You still bring him in, who I think played at a very high level last season. He averaged about 24 points per game, 6 and 4 on great mid-range efficiency. And over the 5 games he has played, he's looked a little rusty offensively, but over the past 2 games, you could really see him start to find his footing a little bit on the floor. Against Brooklyn, Kawhi Leonard had 23 points on 11 shots. He shot 73% from the field and shot 7 free throws. And also against the Lakers, he shot 9 for 13 with 19 points. So the things that makes Kawhi Leonard so good, which is obviously the post play, the mid-range play, the way he's able to create a shot with inside the arc is something that's phenomenal. And not only that, he's still extremely effective as a defender. That's something that almost goes without being asked. And a few of my takeaways from Kawhi Leonard's past few games, especially against the Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Lakers, is he still can create well with the ball in his hand, whether it's just getting to the mid-range or getting to his spots, and he's still extremely efficient from the mid-range. If you look at his shot charts over the past 2 games, it's a lot of really good looks at the mid-range and him knocking those down. So in a playoff setting, I'm not necessarily concerned about Kawhi if we just keep getting him the burn that he needs. He's going to be able to play out of the post. He's going to be able to come off of curl screens and make plays in the mid-range area or inside the arc. The things that I do have an issue with, once again, and I was watching Hoop Venue and he spoke about this perfectly. I think friend of the channel or just friend of mine, we were on the Hoop Talk podcast together, so I would consider him, content friends. But he explained it pretty well, and it looks like he does not create the rim pressure you would want him to, especially if in a playoff setting, you're going to be relying on Kawhi a lot more, which in the Western Conference, I don't think that's crazy to say that you're going to be relying on your best player to play the best brand of basketball that he can play. But I definitely think, because right now the Los Angeles Clippers are ranked 22nd in offensive rating, which is something I think is going to act like slowly but surely rise up in the rankings with the addition of Kawhi Leonard and how well he plays off the ball. Just being able to find himself in open spots, knock down mid-range shots, or knock down threes once he does get better at the 3 ball. I do think that's going to come with time. But once again, you have one of the best offensive minds in basketball in James Harden. You have another 20-point per game type of guy in Norman Powell. And now you add in Kawhi Leonard, who can be extremely efficient and get to his spots so easily. I think this is a playoff replica or a playoff recipe that may be able to get them very deep in this Western Conference. And if you add on top of them having such a great personnel of defense, whether it's Kawhi Leonard, Chris Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr., Ivica Zubac, you have the point of attack defenders. I think Kawhi Leonard is a fantastic off-ball player and can be an on-ball player in situations. I know how much you would want to stay away from him being the lead point of attack defender on a team nowadays, especially with his injury history, and you just not wanting to take that risk of him going down again. Because it feels like we sing this same song every single season. Kawhi Leonard is the living or dying part of our team. If Kawhi Leonard is healthy, we have a shot of making a deep playoff run. If he is not, we may not get out of the first round. So that's what makes me commend this Clippers team so much, because they were able to stay afloat with their extremely aggressive defense, the way they can generate turnovers, the way they can fly around the perimeter with Derrick Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn, and having guys like Norman Powell and James Harden be able to force their guys into spots where Ivica Zubac can clean up their messes. I think this is a really good defense. So with that recipe and that formula to be a playoff level team, I want to look at some matchups across the Western Conference and teams that they could go against and make it tough for these teams. The first team I want to talk about is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know it's kind of crazy. I'm going to be talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder, the best team in the Western Conference, and some people would think the best team in the NBA, and that will be the first matchup I'm talking about. I think Kawhi Leonard has that level of efficiency and mid-range work to where he can be as efficient as SGA in those spots, but do I think he can match him in volume? Maybe not. But what really puts faith, or really what gives me faith, is that you can put Chris Dunn on Jalen Williams. You can put Derrick Jones Jr. on SGA, and you have a pretty decent scheme against this OKC offense to where you can get some key stops and you can win some key games. And I think that's going to be very, very crucial for this Clippers team. I also think with the level of James Harden is to orchestrate this offense with Norman Powell playing off the ball the way that he does and Kawhi Leonard playing off the ball the way he does. And if Kawhi Leonard is fully healthy, or as fully healthy as you would expect him to be come April, I think that they can make that a very interesting series. Now, if Chet Holmgren is fully healthy and he's still showing us what he did earlier in the season by spacing the floor, putting the ball on the floor, and just basically just forcing Ivica Zubac to come out of the paint, I think that's going to be a pretty tough matchup for them. Up next is the Memphis Grizzlies, and I really like this Memphis Grizzlies team, but something about their half-court offense I still don't trust. I know they have improved drastically this season with their half-court offense, but I just don't think they have a guy like Kawhi Leonard who can get to their spots relentlessly and be that efficient when they do get to their spots. So that would kind of be the separator between the two for me. And the thing is, the Grizzlies have always been a team that can lean on their defense. I think the Clippers are a better defense than them right now. And I think the same can be said for the Houston Rockets. Jalen Green has been on a tear lately. Once again, I saw this on Player's Choice. He can win you a series or he can lose you a series. And which one are you willing to bet on? And to be completely honest, I feel the same way about the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards has been fantastic this season, in my opinion. A lot of people think he's regressed, but due to his offensive situation, I'm not willing to say he is regressed as a player. And that's something that's going to be very troubling in a playoff scenario, especially against a team like LA, who can really protect the rim at a high level and create turnovers the way they do. I think they're going to be blitzing Anthony Edwards to the point where he's probably not going to have the ball in his hands a lot. So overall, I think this Los Angeles Clippers team has been one of the better stories this season, especially with coming into the season, all the guys that had them outside of the play-in or just inside the play-in, to them being pretty comfortable as a playoff team going into halfway through the season, being a top 2 defense in the NBA, and now getting their best player back, and looks like he's slowly starting to heat up and really start to play the level of basketball that we've grown accustomed to. And I think with their scheme and their personnel, offensively and defensively, they can win a series or maybe even 2 in the right matchup. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think about this Los Angeles Clippers team. Are you guys ready to buy in on this Clippers team, or are you still a little bit hesitant due to Kawhi Leonard's injury history? And with all that being said, I hope you guys like this video. And if you like this type of content, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.